Hello, Evolutionary Astrologer Bryan Colter here for another astrology report, although this will be a different subject than my normal bi-weekly new moon and full moon videos. And for those of you who were eagerly awaiting my Virgo new moon video about a week ago that never came, I did make an announcement on the channel. I don't know if everyone saw it though. I did get food poisoning, and wow, it sure did suck. That was pretty nasty. I didn't enjoy it at all. So I wasn't able to make that video. Sorry about that. And for those of you who sent well wishes, thank you so much. That meant a lot to me. And I also put out a poll and saying, hey, let's crank out another video while we wait for the Aries full moon in about a week from now. And overwhelmingly, I got the response of, between the options I gave, 70% of the people wanted me to talk about the nodes of the moons, where they're transiting today through Sagittarius and Gemini. And from the evolutionary astrology perspective, it represents collective karma. The karma that has been ripening for us as a whole, the lessons we're trying to work through and learn and get better at, although implicit in that, there's a lot that we suck at, in that, that's the challenge, that's the friction. And then, of course, the karmic medicine. And the nodes of the moon, as I said, are in Sag, Gemini now. They were in Cancer, Capricorn before. They shifted into Sag, Gemini June 5th. Okay. And actually probably most astrologers will talk about, and even online, if you calculate astrology with some sort of software, they'll say the nodes change sign in May. And it's like, okay, May, June, they're only a month apart. It depends on how the astrologer calculates the nodes. I think most astrologers use what's called true nodes. I use mean nodes because I think it's more accurate based on my experience. So I'll be working with that date, June 5th of 2020, all the way to December 23rd of 2021, about 18 months, where the nodes will be in Sagittarius, Gemini. It's important to point out also that from the evolutionary astrology perspective, the transiting nodes basically mean two things. One, the collective karma, which I'm about to talk about, but another one says an awful lot about the karma of the babies being born from now all the way through the end of 2021. They'll be coming from the South Node in Sagittarius, Sagittarian themes primarily in their past life. Of course, their own personal birth chart will flavor and color that in very specific ways. But broadly speaking, all the souls coming in come from Sagittarian themes. But that's a subject for another video. So back to the collective karma. And as I said, nodes shifted June 5th into Sagittarius, Gemini. Here it is, late September. I'm a little late to the party, but it's still very important to talk about. And I have been talking about it. I've been sprinkling it in a lot of my videos since the nodes changed signs, because it's so fundamental to understand, as we talk about the music of the spheres and what it means now, understanding the nodes is fundamental. So I have been chatting about it, but I haven't done a specific video about it. And before we talk about Sagittarius, Gemini, let's take a little peek in history, understand where we've come from to get to this place, just to add a little bit of context. So from November 2018, when the nodes entered into Capricorn, Cancer, all the way to June 5th of 2020, they were working on that axis. And I primarily want to focus on Capricorn here. A lot of what I'll be saying is about the South Node of the Moon, because that's what's linked to the karma. The North Node is what's linked to, okay, what's the karmic medicine? So South Node in Capricorn, 2018, 2019 into 2020, is, it's helpful as a starting point as we enter into the energy of Capricorn to understand that when the sun goes into the sign of Capricorn every year, winter starts. Okay, of course, that's in the northern hemisphere, but that's where these symbols really evolved. So we're talking about winter symbolism here. And it always makes me think of Game of Thrones. It's like winter is coming in that foreboding tone. It's like, the long winter's coming. They know it. They have to steel themselves for it because it's going to require them to suffer on some level and just try to survive. And that's the energy of dark side Capricorn. There's beautiful things about Capricorn too, but when looking at the South Node, we want to look at the symbols a little bit negatively, a little bit askance, just to see what's the lesson there. So winter is coming. It deals with scarcity, challenge, difficulty. Okay. Now, some people can rise to the challenge and become more mature and self-disciplined and realize how strong they are. That's a healthy response. Or we can whine and moan and really spiral into the negative subset of emotions associated with Capricorn, because Capricorn can feel pretty uncomfortable sometimes, which is loneliness, depression, loneliness especially, because it's the sign of the hermit. And it can feel a bit, dark side Capricorn can feel a bit weighty and oppressive. The dark side of conservatism too, control, greed, dark, toxic ambition. And then we take that hermit archetype. It's ruled by, Capricorn's ruled by Saturn, the Lord of Solitude. We sure have been feeling a whole lot of solitude, through, especially beginning of 2020 to the halfway point. A lot of us still are in lockdown. So feeling that confinement, feeling trapped, feeling caged, that's a lot of what we've been working with as we really suffer from the control mechanisms on the planet, which prefer to establish more power and control. So that's a lot of what we've been struggling with. And that phrase, winter is coming, well, the nodes have left Capricorn, Cancer. You could almost say winter has come and left, but it's still here. We're still experiencing Capricorn, not because of the nodes, but because Saturn's still in Capricorn, Jupiter's in Capricorn, Pluto. So we still got a lot of dark side Capricorn energy we're working with as we are eventually going to head into Aquarius energy, which is a lot more liberating. And that's a little bit further down the trail. Again, another subject for another video. But that gives us an understanding of where we come from. Now the nodes change signs. Click, click, click. And leave Earth-water axis into fire-air, which has a much more kinetic blast of energy. It's very energetic. There's a lot of movement with this, like the energetic texture of the combination of the fire and air sign of Sagittarius and Gemini. And of course, coming from that energy of feeling hemmed in, all that Capricorn, now we hit this kinetic, energetic blast, okay? There's a lot of restlessness. It's like the horses getting ready to do the race, and then the gun fires, and then boom, they're running out the gates at full speed. So from full stop to full speed, that's kind of the transition here. And this can be good in some ways, of course, okay? It's good to have that freedom. Gemini and Sagittarius love that freedom. But we really want to look at the dark side of Sagittarius. What is the collective working with? What's the learning curve here? What's the dark side of Sagittarius? And then we'll sprinkle in the medicine of Gemini. Well, Sagittarius is classically known as the sign of religion. Okay, so we're talking about belief systems here. Fixed set of ideologies and belief systems. And of course, when I say religion, I don't mean Christianity or being a Muslim or a Taoist or, any of these things, although it includes that, okay? But we don't narrowly want to just think about, okay, what is our belief in the divine creator, okay? Although that's a big piece of the puzzle. We can be religious about being an atheist, being a cynic. It's like it all means nothing. That's a form of dogma too. How about materialism? Are there people out there that have made a god out of money? Yeah, definitely. Okay. It's ways of looking at reality where we're so fixated on that version of ideas that they always, whenever we're certain about what reality is, we'll always have blinders. Okay. So the karma is ripening for the collective of people walking around with those blinders, certain about what reality is. And one of my favorite teachers, a very advanced mystic, he's no longer with us, but he once said, whenever we try to conceptualize God or God consciousness, it turns from God to fantasy. Because we can't possibly know on this side of the veil. It sure is fun to think about. But whenever we're certain about what reality is, it's not quite that. And humanity, of course, has a very colorful history with religion, and that karma is ripening for us now. Humanity is drunk on religion. And a lot of folks, not everybody obviously, we're generalizing here, but that's the energy, have been indoctrinated into various faiths. And the insecurity of that faith is they feel like they need to convert everybody else. Okay? So not only is everybody drunk on anger, but here they are spewing in very fiery ways because Sagittarius is a fire sign. It's an action-oriented sign. All fire signs are. So taking the action of just spraying their fire of ideas fervently, and just trying to ignite that same passion in other people. It's linked to the word fanaticism, okay? We can be fanatics about what we believe, of course. And there's an author named Jonathan Kellerman, and he had a great quote about religion. He said, religion makes good people better and bad people worse, and that's a pretty succinct definition of religion. I really like that one. So what's the cure? What's the cure for these fanatical belief systems? You even see it in politics. It's like people become religious about becoming a Democrat or religious about becoming a Republican, at least in the U.S. here. That's just another example of people's religions where they just have blinders, okay? And people, just with any belief system, also what you want to avoid during this time especially is falling into echo chambers and confirmation bias that just strengthens those belief systems. What's the cure? Well, Gemini, we want to look to high-end Gemini now as some of the medicine we're taking as the collective here. And Gemini is classically linked to, especially in more ancient forms of astrology, both Gemini and the third house, which have a lot of overlap in meaning, to heresy. Okay, and that's not really a word that's used anymore. But to be a heretic is basically to be crazy and to question things. Question the established patterns of behavior. And people have been punished by death in the history, as they've been labeled a heretic. How dare you question what we believe God to be? Here, we're going to burn you at the stake. It can get pretty nasty. There it is. Fanatics punishing other people because they think differently. So the karma has ripened. What do we need? We need some heresy, We need some questions. It's the archetype of the journalist, of the observer, of the investigator, of the endless student. Let's ask open-ended questions. Here's one that can throw the monkey wrench in a belief system. You see, we look at the more toxic varieties of religion, and it's like, oh, you mean a 5-year-old from India who's never even heard of Jesus and dies of an illness is going to hell? It's like Gemini can throw a monkey wrench into the belief systems of Sagittarius, and that's what we need now is monkey wrenches, and to ask questions and to be open-minded and to realize that how we perceive reality and what we believe reality isn't quite that, because Gemini, ultimately, it's the sign of information, the sign of communication, having open-ended conversations. Okay, what do you think? What do I think? Let's find out where we can come to an agreement, where we disagree, where we agree. It's that investigative energy, It's not so fervently engaged through the heart, it's a little cool, it's a little bit more from the mental plane. Okay, let's investigate this. And underlying communication, information, thought is perception. So the ultimate goal, our karmic medicine, is to perceive reality more clearly. And a beautiful living mantra for Gemini is whatever I believe reality to be, it's not quite that. And in terms of communication, of course, communication's a two-way street. It's also the sign of listening and listening to other people with open ears. A lot of these people who have these belief systems that they're hurling at each other, it's not going to do anything. It's just going to feed into the fire of separateness, of competition, pitting one side against the other. It's not going to do anything. And it's like they're talking to brick walls, except for they're making the other wall stronger with each word they speak. So just observe, the sign of observation. And as you listen to people preach, the question is, you could ask yourself, are they practicing what they preach? Here they are giving their ideas, that they believe wholeheartedly, but looking at their current actions, looking at their past actions, does that match what they're actually saying, Because people can say a lot of things, but actions speak louder than words, that's a cliche. Nothing wrong with a cliche, but it's a powerful phrase, and it's true. So as we tap into this Gemini energy, observe people's actions more than what they say to learn so much about not only the holes in their belief system or just finding out if they're full of crap, That's part of it. So through the synchronistic wave, what will humanity be attracting to ourselves that will counter dogmatic belief? Because we will get our medicine. Doesn't mean we'll swallow it, but that Gemini synchronicity is coming to us. And basically, it's about data in, an influx of data dumps, information that totally challenges, will probably even shatter a lot of people's belief systems that they've become completely brainwashed by. And it's probably going to bring a lot of people to their knees. They're probably going to be in utter shock, And then there's some people that will be not so surprised, So it feels like kind of truth bombs. We're going to be experiencing some truth bombs. That's the synchronistic wave. Gemini serves as medicine against fanaticism and will be ripping a lot of folks out of their ego-centered, brainwashed belief systems. And collectively, will be experiencing a shattering of certainty. And it's tough medicine to swallow. Some more so than others, but it's really necessary now for where we're at. And there's more dark side parts to Sagittarius. For example, Sagittarius is known as the traveler, traveling energy. And of course, we're seeing a lot of movement, around the globe. We're seeing a lot of people moving to different cities, different countries, mainly because of fear. For example, in the U.S., a lot of people are leaving Los Angeles and New York, in Portland and stuff, because they're not pleasant to live in anymore. And they're kind of going down the tubes and people are leaving. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if we contemplate the shadow side of travel, it's like who thinks they can have a geographical cure for all their problems? There is something to be said for changes in latitude, changes in attitude, of course. But, wherever you go, there you are, so people can move for bad reasons too, as they try to escape from themselves, which won't really work. So just be aware of that. That's another dark side potential for Sag. Also be aware of impulsivity. All fire signs suffer from that potential. And of course, Sag has a restless energy to it, as I was saying before. And we came from the Capricornian feelings of confinement. Here we are busting out of the gates. We can do some pretty stupid, impulsive things. Sagittarius is classic for, foot and mouth moments and falling on their face and making really interesting mistakes, before they even really had a chance to think out their actions. So just be aware of that. That stir-crazy energy can create some impulsive actions on our parts, but it also gives us a strong level of compassion in understanding a lot of the decisions that other people make that we may perceive as impulsive. Now, one positive thing about Sagittarius is it's the sign of faith. Okay, it's really linked to the rulership of Jupiter, the faith builder. Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So it's a sign of optimism, idealism. And of course, idealism can turn rancid, as I've been saying, but faith, having faith that the toast will land butter side up, most of the time. But of course, the faith, we can have too much faith, we can have bad faith, and then terrible mistakes can happen. It's like, that ice looks thick enough for us to walk on. Let's go ahead and try to cross the frozen lake, famous last words, So the mistakes that we look at in retrospect as unbelievably stupid is another shadow side dynamic of Sagittarius, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a whole lot of that through the end of this year and throughout 2021. Okay, all that being said, let's recognize that, of course, the nodes, I've been speaking very generalizing here, will also have different feelings. It's almost like this nodal transit is kind of broken up into two sections. You have the 2020 section, the last half of 2020, and then you have the 2021 section. And the reason I say that is we always want to pay attention to, the rest of the astrological weather, but especially Sagittarius is ruler of Jupiter, as I said, and Jupiter will be in Capricorn all the way until December 18th or 19th, somewhere in there, of 2020. And that will flavor it in a certain way. Coinciding with that, I've been talking a lot about this in my videos too, Mars is currently in Aries, where it will be through most of the rest of the year. And Mars rules Aries, so whenever a planet's in its own sign, it's really, really strong. So we have this combination of Mars and Capricorn coloring 2020 nodes. And then 2021, Jupiter will be in Aquarius, and that will have a much different feeling. So starting with the Mars in Aries and Jupiter in Capricorn combination, connecting it to the South Node in Sagittarius, talking about toxic belief systems linking to those other energies. I've been talking about this a lot actually, so some of this might be repetitive, but the symbolism of Mars in its own sign, Mars the war god in the sign of the warrior, is a sign of war. It's the time of war, time of conflict, time of competition, which takes everything I was saying about those fiery, fervent aspects of Sagittarius and sends them through the roof. Okay? And here we are trying to reach this Gemini data in, perceiving reality more clearly. And then Mars, the war energy. It has been, and especially is now, and this is what's crumbling down, is the control mechanisms of the planet have been trying to control our perception of reality. That's their most powerful weapon, is how we perceive reality, because if you control the perception of the public, you control the people at large. And they've been primarily doing this with media. And of course, every form of media has their own dogma associated with it. There are some more independent medias that are pretty open-minded, but even some of the independent ones are pretty dogmatic too. All the mainstream media, you have some Democrat ones, some Republican ones, and then you have some of the independent media, which is very conspiratorial, and they're very dogmatic about that. So, it's truth. It's people fighting each other with their truths now, and this hitting a fever pitch. Okay, so a war on perception. And that's why it's so important for us to desperately hold on to this Gemini energy and say, whatever I perceive reality to be, it's not quite that. I'm open to shock. I'm open to surprise. I'm open to be wowed. I'm open to amazement. And I will be more malleable in terms of my belief systems. Okay? And that's going to help you out tremendously. And now we take this war energy, which is militant, and we take this Jupiter and Capricorn energy, that's a sign I've been talking about a lot, and we apply this militant, controlling energy of Mars Capricorn energy and apply it to belief systems, trying to control what we believe, okay? And we contemplate the dark side of Capricorn in terms of belief systems as the dark side of being basically too conservative. desperately and stubbornly clinging to the past, the fixation to the past, okay? And, we've always done it that way. If it worked for my grandparents, it worked for me, And here we are desperately clinging to a structure, an old artifact of the past, which is crumbling right before our eyes. And that gets into Saturn-Pluto conjunction that's still ongoing, but was really strong at the beginning of the year. That's basically the meaning of that conjunction, is the dissolving of old, outdated systems. Because we're going through rapid change now, and the old has to leave somewhat to make way for the new. Okay, so the dark side of that is militant control trying to cling to something that's crumbling. And then right around December 19th, Jupiter enters Aquarius. And next year, 2021, is going to be a very Aquarian year because Saturn's going to enter Aquarius. So this is going to be a much different energetic texture. 2021 looks a lot different, okay? And to enter into this, as we contemplate Sagittarian fixed set of ideologies, we look at more Aquarian ones. And Aquarius is known as the revolutionary. It represents the evolution of society. Let's move on. It's a very futuristic sign. And Aquarius is more about forget the past. That was yesterday. This is now. It's time to blow it all up and start all over again, okay? And I think to a certain extent we need some of that, but we can also take it way too far. We can't completely forget about the treasures of the past. It's not about blowing everything up and starting all over again. That's taking it too extreme. But I think manifesting some of the healthier forms of Aquarius is really going to be needed, where we will evolve, but let's do it in a safer way. And it's the archetype of the rebel. So there's going to be a lot of rebellion next year too, I believe. And at least in the USA, obviously I mention the US a lot because I'm from there. So, there's my blinders, of course, and that's just what I know the most about. Unfortunately, I should expand my horizons. But USA, Americans, we really came from rebellion, okay? And I feel like in a lot of ways we've lost our rebel spirit. We've kind of just become lazy in a certain way and just entered into conformity because of the control of our perception, the greed and the power structures of that country, really extending their fingers throughout the world, which is really unfortunate. But we've become a little bit lackadaisical in our freedom and independence and rebellion. And I think that's going to be ignited a bit more, as we tap in more to our roots and where we came from. So that's the energy with the nodes. And I'll say with the Mars in Aries now is the most tense of the whole stretch, especially September, as we've seen, and October. And it's going to get crazy, It is crazy, but it's going to continue to be crazy, but it will start to soften. So just hold on to your butts, and do your best to just tap into this high-end Gemini energy and try to get away from the dark side of Sagittarius, of the vitriol, of the passionate, closed-minded belief systems, okay? So that we can see reality more clearly through facts and information. It's like I am open to this disclosure of truth. I'm open to the truth bombs. I'm ready for something new. I'm ready for a breath of fresh air. I'm ready for a new future. Don't want to completely forget about the wisdom of the past, but it's time to shape more and more into this more evolved expression of humanity as we cement ourselves in the Aquarian age. And those are the core evolutionary intentions, with the goal always being to expand our consciousness.